If you're starting to notice these signs in your life, I want you to hear me clearly. You're not just changing, you're evolving. You're stepping into something bigger than wealth as a number in a bank account. You're stepping into wealth as a way of being. And no, I'm not talking about some vague motivational fluff. I'm talking about real, grounded transformation that starts in the mind, the only place all lasting wealth is ever born. Here's the truth. Every powerful man you've ever admired, the ones who built legacies, not just fortunes, started with nothing more than a seed, but not in the soil, in the subconscious, a quiet knowing, an inner whisper that said, I was made for more. If you're seeing the signs, that seed has already started to sprout. Let's talk about the first major sign. You can't stand mediocrity anymore. Where you used to settle, now you squirm. The things that once felt okay, working a job with no purpose, spending money without thinking, filling your time with distractions, they don't sit right with you anymore. You might feel annoyed, even frustrated with yourself or your surroundings, but that's not a bad thing. That's the awakening. That's your mind refusing to stay in the patterns that once kept you broke, not just in your wallet, but in your spirit, your clarity, and your potential. It's the moment you look around and say, this isn't who I am anymore. And trust me, that's the most important turning point, because now you're not trying to impress people. You're not interested in surface-level success. You want strategy, substance, freedom, not the lottery ticket kind, the intentional, earned kind. This hunger for more, not as ego, but as alignment, is your soul signaling that you've crossed a threshold. You're walking differently now, with the posture of a man who has made a decision. And once a man decides, everything around him begins to shift. Another sign, you've become allergic to wasting time. You feel it when you scroll too long. You feel it in conversations that go nowhere. You feel it when you spend a weekend lost in distractions instead of building what matters. Why? Because your relationship with time has matured. You see time for what it really is, the currency of the wealthy. See, poor mindsets spend time. Average people trade it for temporary pleasure, but those on the path to wealth, they invest it. Every minute matters now. Every hour is either building or breaking your future. That's why you've started protecting your time. You say no more, not to be rude, but because your future is sacred. Every no to distraction is a yes to destiny. And because of that, you don't just scroll to scroll anymore. You don't let your energy be drained by people who bring nothing to your spirit. Your attention, that's your real currency now. You've learned that the man who can control his focus controls his outcomes, and you're becoming that man. You're not reactive anymore. You're intentional. Where others scroll, you study. Where others chase, you attract. And that's not arrogance, it's focus. Focus is what breaks the chains of poverty, because when you're focused, you're no longer manipulated by comparison. You're no longer thrown off course by every shiny object. You have direction, and direction is more valuable than dollars. You've also stopped thinking short term. That's a massive sign. You're not making emotional decisions based on how you feel today. You're making strategic ones based on where you're going 5 years from now. You've started to build systems in your habits, your thinking, your schedule. You're stacking assets, not just financial ones, but internal ones, discipline, self-awareness, value. You're no longer asking, what feels good now? You're asking, what builds my future? That tiny shift right there, that's the foundation of empires. And here's the kicker. You've stopped fearing money. You respect it now. You understand it's not your master, it's your servant. You've stopped trading your hours for dollars and started multiplying your value through leverage, through ideas, through service. That's wealth consciousness, because real wealth isn't about effort alone, it's about value. A poor mindset says, I worked hard, so I deserve this. A wealth mindset says, I created value, so I attracted this. Big difference. And if you're living in that shift now, you're not dreaming of wealth, you're embodying it. Poor minds blame, they complain, they wait. But wealthy minds, they create, they solve, they move. You've stopped looking at your past as a prison. You've stopped waiting for someone to give you permission. You've realized you are the sign you were waiting for. And when that clicks, everything changes. Another sign you're on this path, you've become obsessed with growth. You're not looking for entertainment anymore. You're looking for education. You're reading books, watching lectures, listening to podcasts that stretch your thinking. Gossip bores you now. Complaining feels like poison. You've replaced theory with execution. And yes, even imperfect action is creating momentum. And momentum, my friend, is the secret weapon of every wealthy man. Not speed, not hype, momentum. Because speed can burn out, but momentum, it compounds. Every day of discipline adds weight to your character, and character creates gravity. The world can feel when you're serious. Opportunities notice, people notice, wealth notices. You're serious now, not serious in mood, serious in mission. You smile more, not because things are easier, but because you're aligned. You've stopped panicking when life gets tough. You've stopped dramatizing setbacks. You don't talk about goals the same way anymore. You live them. You move like someone who already knows it's handled, because you've already visited that version of yourself, the one that made it, in your mind. Every wealthy person I ever studied had one thing in common. They didn't wait for results to show up before they acted like the man. They became the man before the results came. And that's exactly what you're doing now. You're visualizing in the morning. You're speaking with intention. You're guarding your words because you understand now. Words create. You've replaced "I can't" with "I will." You've stopped saying "hopefully" and started saying "done." Your language has become prophecy, and your voice has become the architect of your future. And that's powerful, because when a man controls his language, he controls his life. Let's pause here. If this is resonating, if you feel this shift deep in your bones, then congratulations. You're already walking a path most never commit to. And in part 2, we'll go deeper into the next layer, how your circle is evolving, how your identity is being forged in fire, and how your internal leadership is becoming your greatest wealth.
Let's pick up where we left off, because if you're seeing these signs, then the evolution hasn't stopped. It's gaining steam. Here's another undeniable indicator. Your circle is changing. You're not ghosting your old life out of arrogance, you're just building something bigger now. And the bigger your vision becomes, the tighter your circle needs to be. You started noticing that comfort-driven conversations don't fit anymore. You're not vibing with people who think small, settle early, or live on autopilot. That's not judgment, that's growth. You understand something now that most never learn. Proximity is power, and poverty in all its forms is contagious. So you've started placing yourself in environments where the baseline is excellence. You're no longer trying to be the smartest guy in the room, you just want to be in rooms where smart people are talking. Because now you're a student of wealth, not just financial gain, but of the principles, the psychology, the energy, the legacy behind it. You're no longer asking, how can I make quick money? You're asking, what kind of man do I need to become so wealth becomes inevitable? You're not just building income, you're building a philosophy, a code, and that code is becoming your compass. Now here's a deeper sign. Adversity doesn't break you anymore, it builds you. Where you once crumbled under pressure, you now grow. You see setbacks not as signs to quit, but as training grounds. You're not avoiding pain, you're alchemizing it. You're extracting the lesson, you're using the burn to build strength. This isn't just a mindset trick, this is character development. And character is the only container strong enough to carry real wealth. If you're seeing this in yourself, if you've become the kind of man who shows up when it's hard, who keeps going when it's boring, who finishes what he starts, you're not just motivated, you're ready. Because wealth doesn't flow to the excited, it flows to the responsible. You're proving to yourself that you can be trusted with your word, with your energy, with your vision. And here's the spiritual law most people ignore. Trust always comes before transfer. When you're trustworthy, abundance finds you, not by accident, by alignment. Another massive sign? You're no longer guessing, you're executing. You've shifted from talking to doing, from hoping to building. You're no longer planning your life around moods and motivation. You're building your days around systems. And that's when things get powerful. You're not making emotional decisions anymore. You're making strategic ones, daily, quietly, consistently. You've realized wealth doesn't shout, it stacks. And every focused day, every disciplined habit, every smart no you say is compounding. Even if nobody's clapping, even if no one sees it yet. Because you know what? Wealth sees it. And wealth doesn't show up where it's needed. It shows up where it's prepared for. Let's talk about your habits. You're not living for dopamine hits anymore. You're not eating for pleasure. You're eating for fuel. You're not scrolling to pass time. You're reading to expand. And those small choices, they're not small. They're massive. They are evidence that your identity is shifting. And that right there is the engine of wealth. Because identity always precedes behavior. And behavior always precedes breakthrough. Poor men justify bad habits. Wealthy men build around discipline. And you've realized something life-changing. Discipline is not a punishment, it's a privilege. It protects your time. It protects your energy. It protects your vision. And without it, nothing great can be sustained. You started treating your mornings like sacred ground. Not rushed, not reactive. You wake with clarity. You move with intention. You lead your day instead of letting your day lead you. This isn't survival anymore. You've entered stewardship. And stewardship isn't about owning things. It's about being worthy of more because you're managing what you already have with honor. See, you can't carry wealth if you still think like a man who's just trying to get by. You have to think like a man with legacy on his shoulders. The man with legacy doesn't argue about petty stuff. He doesn't chase quick validation. He doesn't measure his worth by applause. He builds in silence. He thinks generationally. He's not addicted to more. He's addicted to meaning. And here's another sign you're leveling up. Your relationship with work has matured. You've stopped looking for shortcuts. You're not idolizing passive income anymore, not until you've become actively valuable. You know, leverage only works when value is present. You understand now that hard work isn't something to avoid, it's something to master. And every time you show up, whether it's glamorous or gritty, you're compounding competence. And competence, that's currency. Every wealthy man is excellent at something. He's not distracted, he's not dabbling. He chooses his mission. He digs deep. He builds depth, not just reach. You've stopped bouncing between ideas. You've stopped chasing trends. You've simplified. And in that simplicity, you found power. Because surface-level effort gets surface-level results. But depth creates dominion. You're learning to regulate your emotions now, too. You don't snap like you used to. You pause. You process. You respond instead of reacting. You're not internalizing everything and turning it into shame or self-doubt. You're investigating your patterns. You're getting curious about yourself. And that curiosity, that's the birthplace of emotional intelligence. And let's be real, emotional intelligence is not soft. It's a weapon. It allows you to stay strategic when other men are melting down. It lets you make decisions based on principle, not pressure. And that strength, that's what leaders are made of. You started thinking in terms of multiplication, not just consumption. Multiplying your time, your energy, your skill, your message. That's a whole different frequency. Because poor minds consume. They need the next thrill, the next fix, the next distraction. Wealthy minds, they multiply. They delay gratification. They compound effort. They scale value. And you are in that camp now. You're studying when others are scrolling. You're building systems when others are binging. You're investing your energy when others are wasting it. You've realized that every action is either an asset or a liability. Every decision is compounding for you or against you. And here's the pivot. You started making decisions not from your feelings, but from your future self. You started asking, what would the man I'm becoming do? Not what feels good right now. That's the shift most people never make. That's the moment your why becomes louder than your worry, when your vision weighs more than your weakness. That's not just growth, that's wealth in motion. You've started tracking your inputs now, not obsessively, intentionally. You track your energy, your time, your spending, your patterns. Not because you're paranoid, because you're responsible. And responsibility is the bedrock of freedom. A man who won't be responsible will never be rich. Wealth always flees a life of disorder, but wealth is magnetized to discipline, to structure, to stewardship. And one more thing, your self-talk is leveled up. You're no longer punishing yourself after every mistake. You're learning, you're adjusting, you're leading yourself. You understand now the first person you lead is the one in the mirror. And leadership doesn't start with titles or applause. It starts with self-respect. You're choosing your voice every morning. And now, you're choosing power, truth, commitment. You stopped waiting to feel like it. You've stopped needing hype. You've outgrown motivation without movement. You don't need flashy anymore. You crave real. And that craving, that clarity, that's not weakness. That's mastery. Pause here. In part 3, we'll explore the deeper spiritual and psychological shift from needing to creating, from chasing to attracting, from temporary success to legacy-level wealth.
Let's keep going, because if you're still nodding along, still feeling the truth of this in your bones, then there's one more layer to uncover. Let's talk about the unseen. If you've made it this far down the path, chances are you've become more sensitive. Not weak, not emotional, aware. You're tuning into things that most people ignore. You can feel when something is out of alignment, whether it's a person, a place, or an opportunity. You've developed the ability to read energy, not just words. And that's not woo-woo, that's discernment. You can spot the dissonance in someone's tone before they ever admit they're lying. You can sense when a job offer looks good on paper but feels off in your gut. You know when a partnership is pulling you off mission, even if it's profitable. That's not paranoia, that's spiritual intelligence. And the wealthiest people on the planet rely on it. You've learned to trust your intuition, not as an emotional reaction, but as awareness. Because you've been doing the inner work, you become conscious of your patterns, your blind spots, your emotional triggers. You've developed the humility to pause and pivot, and that alone puts you in the top 1%. Because what separates the man who keeps wealth from the one who loses it, it's not IQ, it's awareness. It's the ability to adapt, to evolve, to stay teachable when others get arrogant. And if you're seeing that humility grow in yourself, welcome to sacred ground. Because the path to true wealth, it's sacred. It's not for the crowd, it's for the committed. For the man who stays when it's hard, who decides when others delay, who trades short-term applause for long-term abundance. That's you now. You don't just want more, you're becoming more. Your life may not fully reflect it yet. Maybe you're still climbing, still grinding, still in the early chapters. But inside, you know. You've changed. You're sharper. You're calmer. You're bolder. You're grounded. And most importantly, you're never going back. Because once you see what you're capable of, going back to your old life is no longer an option. That's the real definition of wealth. Not just having, becoming. If you're still seeing these signs and, more importantly, living them, then I'll say something most people won't. Wealth is no longer a possibility for you. It's an inevitability. Not because of luck, not because of external circumstances, but because you've already become the type of man that wealth was designed to serve. You've stopped chasing riches like a beggar begging for favor. You've earned the right to expect prosperity, not through entitlement, through alignment. Look at how you now treat your mornings, not as obligation, but as a ritual. You rise with calm, with clarity. You prepare for the day instead of reacting to it. Every day started in intention is a seed of wealth planted. And when you compound intention over months and years, no force in the world can stop what's coming to you. Because wealth doesn't flow to the scattered. It flows to the deliberate. And you, my friend, have become deliberate. Even your goals have changed. Where once you chased status, now you seek significance.
Where once you wanted money to feel powerful, now you know real power is control over yourself. You've discovered that freedom isn't about buying more. It's about needing less. And from that posture, you've stepped into mastery. Because the man who needs nothing is the most dangerous man in the world. He can't be manipulated, he can't be bought, he can't be distracted. And because of that, wealth is drawn to him, naturally. You've started to embody what separates the wealthy from the hopeful. You've stepped into the mindset of value creation. You don't ask, what can I get today? You ask, what can I give that multiplies? Because you've learned money follows value, and value flows from a refined mind and a sharpened skill set. And you, my friend, are sharpening. Every day you think clearer. Every day you solve faster. Every day you speak with more clarity, precision, and purpose. That's the evidence, not of hype, but of a man preparing for magnitude. And if we really want to get to the root of all of this, it boils down to one word: identity. If your identity is changed, then your reality is already changing. You're no longer saying, I'm trying. You say, I'm becoming. You don't say, maybe one day. You say, it's already done. I'm catching up to it. You walk like it's done. You work like it's done. You plan like it's done. Because deep down, you know, energy doesn't lie. When your mind is made up, reality bends to match. Even in silence, even in private, even when no one's watching. You've developed the habit of showing up without applause, without validation. You've divorced yourself from the need for attention. You've married yourself to the mission. That kind of discipline, that kind of internal leadership, that's the fabric of true wealth. You don't outsource your habits anymore. You don't wait for someone else to motivate you. You don't need a reminder to honor your commitments. You are your own reminder now. And that is power. Because when your private behavior matches your public declarations, that's congruence. That's wealth. You've developed vision now, not the kind painted on Pinterest boards, but the kind etched into your spirit. You see the future before it's visible. You speak life into dry places. You build even when there's no crowd. You plant seeds even when the world is complaining about the weather. And because of that, you will reap what others only dream about. Not through inheritance, not through lottery wins, but through law. The law of cause and effect. The law of responsibility. The law of alignment. The law of clarity. The law of belief. And if you are truly walking this path, there is one final sign that cannot be ignored. You have become unshakable. You're no longer thrown off by delay. You're no longer discouraged by rejection. You're no longer broken by setbacks. Because now you've trained your mind to interpret every pain as preparation. You've turned adversity into advantage. You've made excellence your default. Not something you do when it's convenient. Something you live, even when no one's watching. You've made integrity your compass. You've made purpose your currency. You've stopped talking about goals and started building systems. And systems build. You're not chasing big wins anymore. You're stacking small ones, knowing they multiply, that they compound, that they last. You're not building for next week. You're building for legacy. You're not here to impress. You're here to endure. And that, my friend, is the final sign. You are inevitable. Because the man you're becoming no longer makes decisions from fear or limitation. He moves from vision. He invests from faith. He multiplies what he touches. He embodies what he speaks. You've made peace with solitude. You've made silence your sanctuary. You've turned your private world into a fortress of discipline. And now you don't chase wealth. You attract it. Because the man you are today, structured, intentional, consistent, aware. That's the man wealth was looking for all along. So keep going. Stand tall, move with intention, build with boldness. The world may not notice yet, but wealth already has, and it's making its way to you. Not because you're hoping, because you have become.